What's up, everybody? I want to warn everybody right off the bat that this is not going to be a nice video. In fact, this video will likely be very, very brutal, and some of you may even disagree with some of the viewpoints that I'm about to express, but that is your prerogative. I live, as some of you know, with my ex Lisa. She helped me out in a tough spot in 2011 when I had nowhere to go. I was suffering from chronic dizziness and I couldn't work, and I was losing my apartment. I had nowhere to go, and she took me in because she didn't want to see her son's father living on the streets, and I've always appreciated that, and for the most part we've always gotten along. We lived in Glowersville, New York for quite some time, and then we moved out here to Lake George, and not long after we moved out to Lake George, my father called and he needed a place to live, and of course we said yes. I made a video previously talking about how much I owe my father, and and Lisa felt the same way, and we didn't, there was no question. Of course he could come live with us. It should be noted that when he moved in, we didn't really have an extra room for him. We had a house full, and we were going to set him up in the living room with a bed and all that stuff, and he chose to stay on the front porch, and he loved it out there. That's where he spent most of his time, and it kept him kind of isolated from everybody because that's his nature. Two, he didn't want to deal with a lot of the bullshit in the house, and I don't agree with him. There is a lot of bullshit, and just the way it is, but that was his choice and he was fine with it. So not long after that, my father asked me if his girlfriend could move in. I don't want to dignify her with a name in this video, so let's just call her Skittles, and most of the people that know me will know why I'm choosing that name. Anyway, Skittles moved in, and it was okay for a while, but over the course of the short period she was here the first time, Lisa's wine cooler started disappearing. Skittles is a full-blown alcoholic and is the only suspect in this case. And the matter could have been dropped entirely if she would have just admitted it, but did she admit it? No. Which is stupid because it happened while she was here, stopped happening when she left, and the only other suspects besides her would have been my father and the boys. So take your pick, Skittles, which one was it? Some people will say, well, why not you? Because I very, very rarely drink because it makes me sick. Alcohol literally makes me gag, and Lisa wouldn't have cared if I had taken some wine coolers. And everybody is free to laugh at my inability to handle alcohol if they choose. So she left that first time, and we didn't want her to come back. We were already done with her by that point. But over the course of time, my father asked me again, and we relented. We let her come back. She still denied stealing the alcohol, which is total bullshit. She was only supposed to come back for a couple of weeks, but a couple of weeks turned into a couple of years. About a year and a half or so ago, we went through a period where we had no vehicle. And Lisa's best friend, Teresa, who also lives on the property, was nice enough to let us use her car on occasion. And that was an issue because the car was owned by her ex. We're not on her insurance. If something had happened, it would have been a big deal. It would have hurt Teresa a great deal, and that's not fair. Eventually, it got to the point where Teresa said we couldn't use the car anymore, and perfectly reasonable, perfectly understandable. Skittles, however, had a major issue with this. It should be noted that her oldest son had recently had a heart attack, and it's a major issue because Skittles' husband died of a heart attack. And of course it's a personal issue, and of course you're worried for your child. I totally understand this. But Skittles flipped out on my father of all people, saying that Teresa didn't have the balls to stand up to her ex, and that we should be able to use the car, this and that, blah blah blah. Take note of the fact that she said all this and didn't have the balls to tell Teresa to her face. Lisa heard all this, went out on the porch, went off on Skittles, and then told Teresa, who also came over and went off on Skittles, because Skittles deserved it because she's a bitch. I also had words with Skittles, and I was done with her by this point. I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I was fucking done. My father begged me to forgive her. Begged me. And in the interest of all honesty, I did not really fulfill his promise. I did not accept her apology, but I did let the matter drop. I continued to put up with this woman because I owed my father, and that was basically it. I owe him so much money from when he helped me with my apartment, and he was largely responsible for my book getting published. I always wanted to pay him that money back. That was one of my biggest dreams. That's all I ever wanted. So I put up with this woman because I owed my father. One more thing before I continue. I know that people are going to be out there saying this is nobody's business, it has no business out there, and you're not entirely wrong, but it's my business, and if I choose to make it other people's business, I can do so. Anyway, fast forward to earlier this year, my ex Kate calls me. She's got a little tiny emergency. She's been called into work the next morning, and Aiden was going into school late because he wasn't taking the state testing, so she needed someone to watch him and get him off to school. Unfortunately, this day happened to fall on the day that my father gets his Social Security money, and Skittles is a leech. Let's get perfectly straight here, okay? I'm I'm starting to break down. I'm losing my composure, so I'm gonna come right out and say, this relationship between my father and Skittles, it's not love. No matter how much they say it is, it's not love. They didn't sleep on the same side of the house, let alone the same room. Skittles had her own room on this side of the house, over here, behind me, and my father slept out on the porch. They did not even sleep together. My father would constantly bitch and complain about Skittles and her attitude and this and that and being in control of everything, which she was. She thought she owned all of us and owned this house and could do whatever she wanted. It's a mutually beneficial partnership, and I'm shooting straight from the hip here. She uses him for money and beer. He uses her for sex and home cooking. That is it. Those are the two things. I love my father to pieces, but I'm being just straight here, being honest. Those are the two things he loves more than me. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, Kate calls with her emergency, and I bring it to Dad. Dad's the only one with a vehicle, so I had to ask him. And I asked him, and Skittles, who's standing right behind me, says, I'm sorry. Skittles, who's standing behind me, says, we're going out tomorrow. I know for a fucking fact that they had nothing important to do the next day except she wanted her beer. She wanted her meal out. She wanted to go to a hotel and have sex. I don't know. I don't really care. It's not important. I needed to help my son for a couple of hours. But no, her shit was more important. And my father went along with it. My father has never said no to his grandchildren unless he absolutely could not help. And that was always understandable. There's just some situations that, you know, you can't do it. Perfectly reasonable. But this was not one of those situations. I'll be straight up here. I lost my fucking shit. I got pissed off. I started slamming doors. I started going all over the place because I knew it wasn't important. I knew it wasn't. So I went upstairs. I went to call Kate to tell her I couldn't do it. And my father followed me up and said, you can take the car. You can take the car. No, I don't want the fucking car. She wants it. Just take her wherever she's got to go. And it turned out Kate didn't need me anyway. She got it figured out. But in the end, it didn't matter. Everything was already exposed by that point. I know I said I was done with her before, and I forgave her, forgave her just for the sake of my father. And another thing should be noted, my father had a heart attack a year and a half ago, somewhere along those lines. So I was trying to keep things as amicable as possible to not put any more stress on him. But at this point, I could not do it anymore. My father is not the first person to choose his significant other over me. My mother told me on the phone a couple years ago that if she had to choose between her boyfriend and me, she would choose her boyfriend. I may or may not be the greatest son in the world. As a matter of fact, I can tell you I'm not. I was downright horrible to my mother in my teen years, and you know, I feel bad about that. But I can't change that. I can only do better now. At this point, I stopped speaking to Skittles. I stopped looking at her. But after the whole fight with Aiden, I started having panic attacks. I had 3 panic attacks in the first 10 days after that fight, including one where I was laying in bed covered in a blanket shivering, feeling like I was freezing. It officially became bad for my health to be around this woman, and nobody else wanted her around either. My 18-year-old stepson is on probation for reasons that are not relevant to this video. His probation officer laid down a decree that there could not be any more alcohol in the living quarters of the house. Now, Devin's never had a problem with alcohol, but it was a thing where we're, you know, keeping it out of his reach and giving him the best chance to succeed. Absolutely no problem, except to one person. Oh, she claimed it wouldn't be a problem at the time. Oh, I'll just keep it in my room. I'll drink it warm, blah, 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 whatever. The thing was, the beer could not be in the refrigerator in the kitchen, and she put it back in the refrigerator not once, but twice. This woman stabbed me and my youngest son in the back, and was trying to stab my stepson in the back too. This woman did not care about us, did not respect us, did not love us, no matter how much she said she did. She made Thanksgiving dinner, okay? And we got our plates. Teresa was there too. It was me, Lisa, and Teresa, and my father. And Skittles comes over and starts giving this speech about how much she loves us and she appreciates us and all this shit. And none of us said anything because we didn't fucking buy it. It was bullshit. She cared about us only so long as we were of use to her. And as soon as we weren't of use to her anymore, she did not care. This woman, I know it's a small thing, but it adds up. This woman did not have enough respect for us to put the fucking toilet lid down, even when we put little stickers on there to remind her, and she still couldn't do it. She could not follow the simplest instructions. This story is not even including the times where, you know, we have a shed out back that's mostly run down, and we've been talking about taking it down since we moved in here so we could put it in a little fenced-in area for the dogs to run around. And the landlord was here, we were talking about taking it down. Candy comes out and says, no, I have stuff in there. Get your stuff the fuck out of there. This isn't your house. We can take down the shed if we fucking want to. Or the time Lisa, the person whose name is on the lease in this house, and gave her a place to live, came up to her and said, hey, I need your room. I need you to move out of that room. And Skittles said, no, I need my privacy. No one gives a fuck about your goddamn privacy. Get out of the room and respect the person that gave you a place to live. We were on the verge of kicking Skittles out of the house anyway, but before we could, Skittles took it upon herself that she decided to leave. And we knew if we kicked Skittles out that my father would follow. For whatever reason. Inexplicably, he would follow her. This lying, backstabbing thief, this fraud of a human being, my father would follow her. Because he's afraid to be alone. He's afraid that if he leaves her, he'll never find anybody else, which is probably true, only because he never goes out and meets anybody. Nobody kicked my father out. Nobody. So they move out, and we're rejoicing. Not because Dad's gone, of course, because Skittles is gone, and we are all happy. The dogs could run wherever they want in the house. They couldn't before because my dad's dog didn't get along with some of the other dogs, and we had to keep them all, like all the dogs are in here in the room with me right now. But they follow me everywhere, so they're still in this room. And they had to keep her locked up in another room too. The dogs can run wherever they want. There's no tension, or at least a lot less tension than there was before. It was very comfortable for 5 days. 5 days after they left, my father calls and says, I need to come home. But he's not bringing Skittles with him. So, perfectly fine. My father was always welcome back. He needed to stay until the end of the month because they ran out of money, because Skittles stupidly made a deal with a hotel for $700-something a month. My father only gets $1,500 a month. Between the car payment and all this other shit and his meds and everything like that, they had no money for food. So my father came back for a month. Well, she stayed in the hotel, and I believe her kids out there helped her. And he left. Earlier this month. He left right on the 3rd. As soon as he got his money, he was gone. For 2 days. The day my father and Skittles left the first time, I was happy Skittles was leaving, but I was also hurt. It goes back to the thing where, you know, my mom chose the significant other over me, and now my father is choosing the significant other over me, and there's a small difference. I mean, my father's boyfriend, or not my father's boyfriend, my mother's boyfriend is a good man, and he takes great care of her, and I appreciate that. And I haven't been able to be there for her as much as I would like, and in that respect I understood what my mother was saying. This case is completely different, and the day they left, I followed my father out to the car, and I said to him, that money that I wanted to pay you, I always wanted to pay you back. I owe you so much, and I have always appreciated everything you've done for me. But you asked me to forgive her after the Teresa incident. You begged me to forgive her. I did, and that, in forgiving her, led to what happened with me and Aiden, her stabbing us in the back. And the day as soon as you leave here, I will consider my debt paid in full, because I'm done. This is, It's total bullshit. It's not right. I love you. You're always welcome back. But I owe you nothing and you owe me nothing. We're even. We're square. I'm bouncing all around here and I apologize because my brain is a jumbled mess as it usually is. Even more so now with all this bullshit going on. So my father calls back this month and asks if he and Skittles can live on the porch, and we said no. Lisa and I said no. You can come back, she cannot come back. We don't want her on this property. We don't want anything to do with her again. And I couldn't tell if there was sarcasm in his voice, but my father said, well, thanks for everything. And we hung up. He calls back again the next day because they're living out of their van at this point. This is how stupid this fucking woman is. She paid the hotel for what she thought was a month, but somehow was only 3 days. What? $700 for 3 days? I don't know what fucking hotel they were staying in, but that's... So guess what? My father's out of money again, and he asks if he and Skittles can sleep in the driveway in the van, because they can't. You can't stay in a parking lot for too long. They ask you to move, and this and that, and blah blah blah. I told my father the first time he called that I could not be around this woman. I suffer from anxiety disorder and severe depressive disorder, and I hate admitting that. But it's the truth. And just thinking about this woman being anywhere near this house was giving me a panic attack. I'm starting to have a panic attack right now fucking talking about it. So what does my father do? He brings that thing to the house and tries to beg me to let them sleep in the driveway. Lisa and I said no again. I love you, Dad, but you got yourself into this situation, and there's no way. We can't this If this woman were a good person, or even half of a good person, this wouldn't be an issue. They'd be back in the house. It wouldn't be a problem. But this woman is not a good person. This woman does not care about anybody, including my father. Only as far as his money does she care about him. And my father is too blind, or is in denial. Probably both. But that's not my problem, and we can't have this woman around. The landlord doesn't even want her on this property. The landlord was pissed when my father came back last month only because he thought that Skittles was with him, and she wasn't. I told him how I felt, straight from the heart, and the answer was still no. We can't. We just can't do it. I'm sorry, but we can't. And I had another panic attack that day. I could feel myself. I could feel like my chest constricting. I was having trouble breathing. I could feel my limbs going numb. I was done at that point. And coupled with my chronic dizziness issues, I was done for the rest of the day, and that just makes me angry because I was doing okay until he called, then I had the panic attack, and then I got too dizzy and I couldn't do anything for the rest of the day. That's how my health is. That's why I have so many problems. That's why I can't work as much as I would want to help my children, but I can't. But whatever. Not important. Nobody cares. Sorry, I don't mean that nobody cares. I'm just really angry. I wrote a status on Facebook because I was pissed off that my father asked me the first time. I'm pissed off that he asked me the second time. I'm pissed off that he brought her in my proximity. I'm pissed off that I had a panic attack with it because he brought her in my proximity, and I'm pissed off that I was too dizzy to do anything for the rest of the day because I had a panic attack because he brought her in my proximity. After that incident, he left, and I went with Lisa to her daughter's house to watch our grandkids because I had to get away. But I could barely do anything at that point. I wasn't walking that well. I wasn't able to really do anything. And when we came back, I collapsed on the kitchen floor with my computer. Not passed out, but I sat on the kitchen floor because I couldn't move or do anything else with my computer, and that's just where I was for like the next hour. My father came back to the house to use the internet for his computer. No problem. He had called and verified that and said, we won't even park in the driveway, we'll park in the road. I don't care. It's fine. He came in to use the bathroom. He came out and he heard my computer and he saw me in the kitchen. I was collapsed on the floor. And he said, are you okay? I just said, I'll live, which is basically, that's my standard answer for that question. And he said, I'm sorry if I brought this on you. I just shrugged because he did bring this on me. It's just the truth. And he said, you won't have to deal with us again. I might call to, come over and use the internet, but you won't have to deal with us again. Again, I shrugged, and he walked out of the room. And one of the dogs came up to me, Jasmine came up to me, and I said, we're going to hold him to that promise, aren't we? We're going to hold him to it. Yes, we are. I know I've probably said it a million times in this video, but Dad, I love you. And as I said to you in the driveway, no matter how much I might think I owe you or don't owe you, I would never leave you homeless. You can come back here anytime. As a matter of fact, I told Dad, I said I would make an attempt to kick Lisa out of her own house before I let him get kicked out. It wouldn't work, and it shouldn't work because it's not my house. But that's how much I would fight for Dad to stay. But not as long as he's with that thing. I don't feel bad about this. I don't feel bad about it in the slightest. And it makes me wonder if I'm a bad person. But if I am, that's just too goddamn bad, because I did everything I could. I tried to help him as much as I could. I put up with her, and she stabbed my children in the back. I'm supposed to forgive her? I'm supposed to let that go? I can't. There's no fucking way. I'm now doing a disservice to my children and to my family if I allow this woman anywhere near us. And if Dad doesn't understand that, then there's nothing I can do about it. I did not ask him to leave. He wasn't forced out. He chose. And now, unfortunately, I do kind of feel bad. He's in this situation where he has to sleep in his van and he has nowhere to go. But that's not true. He does have somewhere to go. But he won't leave her. Ever. He has other options too that he hasn't even looked into. So it's not like I'm leaving him starving on the street. It's not. And my father's a grown man. And I would expect if the roles were reversed, he would do the same thing. And he should. If I was with some bitch that was just, totally selfish and didn't care about me, and then, had problems with my father and gave him health problems, I would expect him to say no if I wouldn't leave this woman. Now the flip side of that is I wouldn't even ask, because I wouldn't put Dad in that position. But here we are. And in closing, to Skittles, I have a little message for you. And a lot of the things I said in the driveway, I made sure you were in earshot to hear because I wanted you to hear. And you didn't say a fucking thing because there's nothing for you to say. But there are a few things I left out. And I'll just simply start by saying this. I am pretty sure there is a special circle of hell reserved for those who betray those they consider family. And I hope you enjoy your spot there, because it's going to be nice and toasty. Do I wish death upon this woman? No, I don't. You know why? Because death is too fucking good for her, and I don't believe in death as a punishment anyways. She doesn't deserve the peace of death, because I believe death is the only true peace there is left in this world. She deserves to stay in this world as long as humanly possible and suffer the consequences of what she has done to everybody around her, because I'm not the only one. My cousins ran her out too. After 6 years, they couldn't put up with her anymore. How they put up with her that long is a fucking mystery. My only regret is that you are dragging my father down with you, but that's his choice. Once again, he's a grown man, he made his own choices, and now he has to lie in the bed that he made for himself. Okay, I think that's it. I think I got everything out of my system. I did this in video because it was way too long to put on Facebook. I've been posting things on Facebook that have made no sense to anybody but myself, which I do quite a bit. I like to post things that have little messages that only have meaning for me, just to amuse myself, and it's an outlet, and that's exactly what this is. This is an outlet. It's, like I said earlier, people are going to say this isn't anyone else's business. I totally get that, but this is me. This is a form of therapy for me before I can actually go to my therapist and get it out of my system. And anyone who watched, anyone who's made it to the end of this video, I love you guys. That shows a great deal of commitment. And I know I said earlier nobody cares. I know it's not true. Unfortunately, depression has a way of making you feel that way. But I know there are people out there that love me and care about me, and I love them and care about them too, and we help each other, and that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be one-sided. It shouldn't be a situation where I have to deal with somebody just to, you know, make sure my father doesn't have another heart attack. It shouldn't end up like that, but it did. So I think that's all I had to say. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm not going to do the regular outro because I don't feel that it's appropriate. But that's it, I guess. Once again, thank you, and I'm sure I'll see you guys around. Try and have a better day than I'm having.